Everybody, we are the Big Three, and we are really fortunate to have joining us today House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries of the great state of New York. Leader Jeffries, how are you doing, my friend?
Great to be on with all of you. Great to be on the Big Three. I feel like I've finally arrived.
We, my friend, we have finally arrived. It is our immense pleasure to host you, especially at such a pivotal time as this. We have a lot to talk about, so we'll just jump right into it. I'm going to start right off with this entire effort to redistrict. Donald Trump asked the leaders in the state of Texas, specifically Greg Abbott and their very crooked Attorney General Ken Paxton, to give him 5 additional seats because he knows that his policies are so unpopular. There's no way that the Republicans will maintain control of the United States House of Representatives. That has now resulted and triggered a response across the country, specifically in the state of California, where Governor Gavin Newsom is doing his level headed best to fight back within the legal means provided to him to combat this gerrymandering. Leader Jeffries, what do you have to say to the American people about this effort and what we can do to support it?
Well, what's clear, as you've laid out, is that Donald Trump and House Republicans are running scared because they have no track record of accomplishment to run on. In fact, what they've done is they're taking healthcare away from millions of people, ripping food out of the mouths of children. They haven't done a damn thing to lower the high cost of living, even though they promised to lower costs on day one. Costs aren't going down, they're going up. The one thing they have effectively done is enact tax breaks for their billionaire donors, which is what the one big ugly bill is all about. And it's the reason why it's so deeply unpopular. So they're only up 3 seats in the House of Representatives right now. That's the narrowest majority that any party has had since the Great Depression. And they know they are on the verge of losing their majority in the midterm elections next year, which is why all of a sudden, out of the blue, in an unprecedented way, they want to gerrymander the congressional map in places like Texas and in other states in order to try to rig the midterm elections. We're not having it. We're responding forcefully, immediately, and effectively. And California is just the beginning.
Okay, so I have a question. So as far as like what's going on in California and what we're seeing with Gavin Newsom, a lot of people are seeing, people fight fire with fire. And then you also have some proponents who are trying to say that Democrats, what we're doing is no better than what Republicans are doing. But the difference that I'm seeing and what we need to be leading when it comes to the message is we're allowing the people to decide whether we redistrict or not. We're putting the power solely with the people. So what can we do to offset this message trying to paint us as two sides of the same coin when we're allowing the people to decide?
That's exactly right. That's a big difference. In fact, there are two big differences. And you have pointed out one, which is that Texas responded past maps in the dead of night to try to hide what they were doing from the people of the great state of Texas and everyday Americans all across the land. Whereas in California, what the legislature has done, what Governor Newsom has done, and the support of the congressional delegation throughout California have done, is to put the question before the people in a ballot initiative so that the people will have the ability to decide up or down whether the Election Rigging Response Act, which is part of Proposition 40, should be enacted into law. So that's a very different approach that Democrats have taken. At the same time, we, of course, do have to respond in self-defense for the American people to an effort to take away the voices of the American people by rigging the midterm elections and altering the congressional map in Texas in such an extraordinary manner. The other big difference that has taken place is that we believe Texas Republicans have violated both the 14th Amendment of the Constitution and Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act by targeting 5 districts currently represented by Black and Latino members of Congress and obliterating those districts. Whereas in California, every proposed change that ultimately will be decided by the people is consistent with the Constitution and the Voting Rights Act. And in fact, an additional majority Latino district is being proposed in Los Angeles County.
Wow. Wow. And so I'll go to Tiffany in a moment, but to summarize, basically the huge difference is the people of California will be the ones to ultimately make this decision. So it's essential that if the people of California support this and they want to see this offset and they want to see this increase in representation, they have to vote yes in November.
That's absolutely right. Yes on Prop 50 to stop Trump from stealing the election.
Now, what initiatives are we making right now to make sure that everybody's informed about, that proposition and showing up to the ballot? What are we doing to make sure that people are organized, registered to vote, that they're actually going to show up to the polls and vote for this, that we're educating? So, like, what messaging are we coming out with from the Democratic Party in order to boost this?
Yeah, it's all hands on deck, and it's going to involve a massive organizing effort on the ground and making sure that we're communicating through both traditional media as well as new media, as we're doing right now, which is why I'm so appreciative that the three of you have had me on the show today, and we'll continue to actually communicate the message. And the message is pretty simple. Yes on Prop 50 to stop Trump from stealing the election. We're going to support the Election Rigging Response Act, and this is going to be done in a manner consistent with the United States Constitution, consistent with the Voting Rights Act, and consistent with a government of the people, by the people, and for the people, because the people are the ones who get to decide in California. Unlike in Texas, where this was a map jammed down the throats of the people by legislators who are interested in choosing who they represent, as opposed to allowing the people to make the decision.
Now, Tiff, I'm going to go to you next. So you can kind of kick us off in transition, but I want to take a moment and say something that Leader Jeffries can't say, or, I'm not going to ask him to say it. I'm going to say it. Listen, Republicans are gearing up with their resources and they're gearing up with their funding and they're putting it all together, getting ready to give all they have to defeat Prop 50. They are going to have a massive campaign, lots of propaganda, lawsuits out the wazoo, even though they literally asked this to happen in Texas. It is our job as defenders of democracy, to take some time and make some support of the efforts to get this passed in November. It's not going to be known by the people. It's not going to make the airways. We know that mainstream media is not giving just due to our Democratic leaders and to the Democratic Party. So we have to do that. We have to spread the word. We have to encourage our friends, families, and networks to vote yes if they're in California. And we have to donate and give of our financial resources to the Democratic leaders in that state to ensure that they have what they need to get the word out to the people. So I wanted to say that, and we're going to have a link embedded in the show notes. So if you want to give, you can. Tiff.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say, obviously, this is not the end, this is the beginning, because we know that there are other states that are likely going to gerrymander. So we know Indiana's on the table, Missouri, Florida, Ohio, and then of course we have other blue states that are in play that, like, we're basically saying, like Maryland, we're like, okay, try it, and we can do the same thing. So two can play that game. So I just wanted to make that clear, and I think that from a civic perspective, a lot of people don't understand how this works. This is done at the state level. This is not a congressional, Congress doesn't make the maps. It is actually the state legislatures that do this. So I just wanted to make that clear, because I don't think a lot of people put two and two together, and they ask you a lot of questions, but they don't really know the details of how this gets done and kind of what goes into play. But for me, I think what's on my mind is something that no one wants to talk about, but it's the the shutdown, the possible shutdown that's coming maybe at the end of September. So back in March, obviously the House Democrats voted against the what I call the unclean continuing resolution to fund the government through September 30th. But the Senate Democrats obviously they forego the filibuster and they decided to work with the Republicans to pass that. So I guess my question is really, what has been happening over the last, obviously we've been in recess over the last couple of weeks to kind of talk through that so that we can kind of prepare and we can get people prepared for what is coming in the next couple of weeks, because I have concerns about it. And I think people that have family members that work in the federal government should have concerns about it as well, because we know that they are going to bring this to the last minute, as always. And so have you been talking to Leader Schumer? Have you been talking to Speaker Johnson, just kind of getting prepared and work on messaging? Because I think it's really important.
Yeah, it's a very important question. I just spoke with Leader Schumer earlier this morning, and I'm scheduled to talk to Speaker Johnson in the next day or so. But with respect to House Democrats and Senate Democrats, we're on the same page. And our view is that if we can find a bipartisan path forward to reach a spending agreement that meets the needs of the American people in terms of health care and safety and national security, and of course, their economic well-being, that's the responsible thing for everyone in Congress to try to do so we can avoid a shutdown. At the same period of time, we're not down with an approach where Republicans simply say my way or the highway, and their way represents putting a spending bill forward for us to vote on that actually cuts the things that matter in terms of everyday Americans and just is designed to build upon their unprecedented assault on healthcare or nutritional assistance or housing or public education or veterans benefits and the things that matter. And so the ball really is in the Republicans' court right now from the standpoint of, are they trying to shut the government down because they're not in good faith interested in wanting to arrive at an agreement that actually lifts up the American people as opposed to trying to tear them down? Or are they ready to come to the table? And, that remains to be seen as it relates to what may happen during the first week of September. We're back, as you suggested, a few days from where we are right now. And then it's going to be on in terms of actually the negotiations, and the role that Donald Trump and his administration will play in this will also be important.
Right.
From your earlier talks, like how likely are we to meet a bipartisan effort with Republicans? Like how likely are we really able to, meet this moment?
Yeah, I mean, I think my view is that we're open to the possibility of them doing the right thing for their constituents, but deeply skeptical that that's actually what's going to happen.
So are we prepared with graphics to, go ahead and shut this down with messaging? Because we have to make sure that the American people know that this is Republicans that's doing this. We don't want to shut it down if we don't have to, but it's all on Republicans. We have to make sure that they're the ones that's being placed, their feet is to the fire, and they're the ones being placed to blame for all that's happening.
Absolutely. Absolutely correct. And here's the thing. Donald Trump is the president. He's a Republican president. Republicans have a narrow majority in the House, but they're in the majority. Republicans have a narrow majority in the Senate, but they're in the majority. These people, the MAGA extremists, have complete control of government. If a shutdown takes place, it's because Republicans have shut the government down. And they will be shutting the government down because they're unwilling to do things like make sure that everyday Americans have access to health care and don't suffer dramatic increases to premiums, co-pays, deductibles, and prescription drug prices, which are likely to occur in the absence of Congress taking action to continue our support for the Affordable Care Act or reverse the cuts to Medicaid and protect our hospitals, nursing homes, and community-based health clinics. If
So
none
to
of that
make it
happens,
plain,
that's all on Republicans.
I'm sorry.
No,
No,
go
if
ahead.
none of that happens. No, I was going to say to make it plain before you go into the second part, like, look, if a shutdown happens, it's on Republicans. Period, point blank. No other questions. No matter how the media tries to spin this to give you both sides isms, no matter how these content creators and influencers come out of the woodworks who are being paid by Russia, tenant media, China, who God knows who from God knows where. If the government shuts down in September, it is the fault of Republicans because Democrats are going to put back on the table the protections for the American people that the American people are begging us to put back on the table.
That's exactly right. Period. Full stop. Shutdown happens. It's because Republicans are uninterested in doing what is necessary to make life better and more affordable for the American people. And that includes protecting the health care of the American people.
I have a question. So if they come out with a clean, which never happens, a clean continuing resolution, would Democrats be opposed or agree to be able to move forward with that? Because I mean, we've had this same continuing resolution. Obviously they made some adjustments to it. Like I said, it was unclean in March, but are we okay with continuing what we're doing? Because the government is obviously being funded now, but are there some leverage? Is there something that you all want from the Republicans that could make this go? For me, I live in Maryland. I want the DC funding back. Like that's $1 billion that they need back. So is that something that you all will be trying to negotiate in this package so that they could get their? I mean, that's the taxpayers' money. They deserve it back.
Absolutely. It's outrageous that DC has been shortchanged of a little more than $1 billion in funding that they need to help keep the people of Washington, D.C. safe and to have its tax dollars actually returned to the District of Columbia. That issue should have been resolved months ago, and it needs to be resolved in connection with the spending agreement that we're going to try to reach by September 30th. In terms of what they may ultimately present to Democrats to consider, if it's a short-term extension to allow for discussions to continue to reach an enlightened agreement that actually would lift up the quality of life for the American people, then that may be something reasonable for us to consider. It would have to be short-term in nature and designed to actually facilitate an eventual agreement that is reached that meets the needs of everyday Americans in Washington, D.C., and all across the country. At the end of the day, what happened in March, in our view, was that they presented a partisan spending bill that was designed to jam their ideological right-wing views down the throats of the American people, hurt veterans, hurt the ability for us to create affordable housing opportunities, and undermine the health care of the American people. And House Democrats were very clear, we're not down with that. And so if what we see next month is simply a continuation of that reckless right-wing Republican approach, we won't be down with it next month either.
Got it.
So, one thing, Leader Jeffries, that I think we need to be just reminded of, right? So we saw on yesterday that Democrats in Iowa were able to, through a lot of hard work, and the unpopularity of the policies of MAGA Republicans all across this country. The Democratic Party of Iowa, with of course support from the DNC and what they were able to do, they were able to take a state Senate seat in a special election in an area that Trump won overwhelmingly and gained that seat. As a result, they broke the Republican supermajority in that state. And now Democrats and the people of Iowa will have way more leverage than they would have had otherwise to fight back against the authoritarianism that is sweeping our country. That's a win, but there have been other wins along the way in this year. We are hearing mainstream media, and to a certain extent, even us as content creators, we're focusing on all the bad. Can you talk to us about some of the wins, some of the Democratic wins, some of the good that has happened from the beginning of the Trump administration until now?
Yeah, it's such an important point that you are making, because I think the Democratic victories that we've seen since January in special election after special election after special election is really one of the most undercovered narratives of the year. The Trump administration is unleashing unprecedented chaos on the American people, unprecedented assault on the economy, on healthcare, on our way of life, on law abiding immigrant families, and on democracy itself. And we have to continue to push back aggressively against that extremism. And we are in a more is more environment. And as Democrats, we will continue to have to do more every day, every week, every month, year after year, until we can end this national nightmare. But at the same period of time, the American people are responding to the fact that Donald Trump and the Republicans have gone too far and have delivered nothing meaningful to make life better for them. In Iowa in
Not for the
January,
people, deliver nothing for the people, but for billionaires.
that's right, a country of the billionaires, by the billionaires, and for the billionaires. And that's what the one big ugly bill was all about. Hurt everyday Americans and reward their billionaire donors with massive tax breaks while exploding the debt by more than $3 trillion. It's the height of irresponsibility, and we can't let them get away with it, and we won't. So Republicans lost a special election in Iowa for the state Senate. In January, it was a district that Donald Trump had won in November by 21 points. We won it by 4. That was a 25-point overperformance. In February, in an open seat for the Westchester County executive position, which over the last several years has been held by both Democrats and Republicans, in a race where Donald Trump endorsed a Republican running against an African American on the Democratic side, we won by 30 points. That was in February. And then in March, we won in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, a special election to fill a seat in the state Senate in a district that Donald Trump had just won by 15 points. That was in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. It's my understanding that a Democrat, prior to winning in March, had never held that state Senate seat in either the 20th or 21st century. Then in April, we won the special election for the state Supreme Court seat in Wisconsin. Elon Musk poured in $25 million to try to steal that seat in a state that Donald Trump had just won, Wisconsin, in November. And in April, we won it by 11 points. It wasn't even close. And then in May, of course, we were able to flip the mayorship in Omaha, Nebraska. That was a mayorship that Republicans had held for the previous 12 years. And for the first time, a Democrat won it in 12 years. And for the first time ever, an African American is now the mayor of the great city of Omaha in Nebraska, a deeply red state. And then throughout the summer, we've been winning special elections in places like South Carolina and in the Midwest. And most recently, of course, what just happened in Iowa to break the Republican super majority. And so the American people are actually responding decisively, supporting Democrats. The base is turning out in extraordinary ways, and swing voters are moving in our direction in state after state after state. We have to keep it up. And we have 3 big races for everyone to get involved in November. 3 big races. We have to win the governorship in New Jersey, win the governorship in Virginia, and win Prop 50 in California.
Hey, I agree. It's great that we're hearing all these wonderful news, but here's the situation. I want to make sure that when we're turning people out, we're not just turning people out based off of survival, but something to actually hope for.
Yeah.
What is it that the promise will be for voters to show up to the polls if we're able to take back the House? Because people want to see accountability to this president. People want to actually, not just survive, but we want to thrive. So, what ask or what messaging are we going to be working on gearing towards those midterms to say, hey, if you guys vote for the Democrats, if we gain back the House, this is what we're going to try to give to you. This is what we're going to bring to you substantively. We have to have something. We don't want to just survive. We want to be able to thrive. We want something back in return. What's that messaging going to be looking like going towards the midterms?
It's a very important point. Our message to the American people is simple. You deserve better. And we want to make life better for you because people have been unable to thrive and in many instances are barely surviving. And we want to make clear to everyday Americans, we hear you, we see you, we feel you, and we are determined to make life better for you. We need to lower the high cost of living in the United States of America. We need to fix our broken healthcare system, and we need to clean up corruption so we can actually deliver a government and a House of Representatives that works for the people, not for the privileged few. And so we want to lean in on the economy and lowering the high cost of living. We want to lean in on healthcare to make sure that people have access to healthcare that is affordable for them when they need it in their community. And of course, we want to strike a blow against corruption in every form, in the Congress, in the Supreme Court, and of course, with respect to the Trump administration. As Democrats, we believe that in this country, three simple things: when you work hard, when you play by the rules, you should be able to live the good life. Fundamentally, that's the American dream. Work hard, play by the rules, live the good life. And we define that in at least 5 ways: good paying job, good housing, good health care, good education for your children, and a good retirement. And what we want to do as Democrats is actually work toward making that happen, as opposed to people just struggling to live paycheck to paycheck, even though they are working hard and playing by the rules. But they can never get to that third phase of living the good life. You deserve better.
So is that message going to be consistent across every district is different, right? So there are very blue districts, there are purple districts. So how are you working with the caucus? Basically, everybody has to be reelected to be able to message that, because I will be honest, some people will say that's just talking points, right? They want details. So are you leaving it to your members to be able to message that in any way they can, to be able to get to the very finite details of what, because like I personally think that all politics is local. What's happened in Maryland does not reflect what is happening in New York, but the one consistent thing I think that everybody across the board feels is affordability. That is one thing that we are all going to struggle with, especially in this economy. So I just want to know what your thoughts on that, because like I said, all politics is local. And I do think that everyone should have a little bit of freedom to be able to message in a little bit of a different way, not necessarily cookie cutter.
Yeah. Well, I think that, some people talk about the American dream. Some people talk about the need for folks to not simply survive, but thrive. I talk about it: work hard, play by the rules, live the good life. And the good life can be defined in a wide variety of ways, but everyone, I think, can agree with the basic premise that if you are working hard and playing by the rules, you should be able to actually get some benefit from that and live a good life, or the good life, for yourself and for your family, and then be able to pass along home ownership or pass along some intergenerational wealth to your children and your grandchildren. At the end of the day, that's what this country should be all about. I agree with what you're saying in terms of, making sure that we are addressing local issues of concern. And as members of Congress, everyone has the ability to do that because we don't represent a city or a state as an entity. We represent a congressional district. And of course, congressional districts can vary in a wide variety of ways across the country. But the one thing we do know is that affordability is the central issue everywhere. And so for us to say, listen, as Democrats, you give us the majority, we're going to be focused on lowering the high cost of living. We mean it because that's what has to happen. Like housing costs are too high, childcare costs are too high, grocery costs are too high, electricity bills right now are through the roof, and Republicans haven't actually done anything to address that. They're making it worse with their one big ugly bill. Like these are the things that are basic to every single congressional district across the country. And we've got ideas as to how we can actually build more affordable housing and bring down the cost of rent and make it easier for home ownership to happen in community after community after community. We have ideas about addressing price gouging and some of the dynamics that Americans have had to deal with over the last several years in this inflationary environment. We oppose the Trump tariffs, which are going to make life more expensive for everyday
Making life
Americans.
more expensive.
Absolutely, no doubt about it. Making life, thank you for that adjustment, making life more expensive by thousands of dollars a year. And it's going to get worse over the next couple of months if you actually have a Congress that functions as a separate and co-equal branch of government, as opposed to what these Republicans are doing, which is a reckless rubber stamp for Donald Trump's extreme agenda. Then we'd actually have a shot to stop the Trump tariffs. And in doing so, making things more affordable for the American people. So affordability, I think, is a universal issue that as Democrats we can address. And in different parts of the country, that may be more acute in the housing space or more acute in the energy space or childcare space, but we have to address it. Or healthcare.
So, Leader Jeffries, we appreciate your time. We're at the 31:59 mark, and we promised your team that we wouldn't go much over 30 minutes. And so I just want to take a moment and say to everybody, thank you guys for joining us. Really appreciate your time. Really appreciate your willingness to get in front of the big three audience and share with us. People are fighting back all across America. We have seen town halls that were held by Republicans, where where Republicans are speaking out against what they're seeing. And so the momentum is there. It's only going to grow. And again, by coming together as a coalition of people, defenders of democracy behind our leadership, I think that great strides will continue to be made. But we can't take our foot off the brake. Do we have any final words from my co-host, and then final word from you, Leader Jeffries? Tiffany, Kenny, and then Leader Jeffries.
I don't have any final words, but I just want to say to my Brooklyn brother, because when you're from Brooklyn, you got that thing. But no, I think we appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today, and we look forward to you bringing the fire because we need to fight fire with fire. So we look forward to you as well as all of the governors and all of the people trying to gain momentum as we go into 2026 because it's really important. And we look forward to seeing how this goes. But I think what you said about the races has built confidence. It's building confidence. People are feeling a little bit better as winning builds more winning. So I think we are getting there, but it's been a long road. And yeah, I look forward to seeing what's going to happen in the next month with this continuing resolution or maybe possibly a bill, but I highly doubt that.
Thank you.
And thank you so much, Leader Jeffries, for granting us this time. I pretty much repeat the same sentiments as Tiff. But also definitely reach out to a lot of us content creators. I understand that you can't do everything because you are literally, the leader, and you have so many other people that you have to think or keep in mind with the words that you say. You have to be very careful and you have to be very calculated. So allow us content creators and reach out to us so that way in my form, we could be your anger translator if you need us to be. Certain things that you can't say, allow me to say it. If you can't call Trump, a fat Kinkles taco tits, let me do it. See, those are the things that we have the ability to do because there's no consequence. So just so you know, you do have people who are rooting for you because we cannot allow you to lose. Because if you lose, then we lose. And I just want you to know that we got your back.
I appreciate all three of you and the power of your words and also the power of your communication. Look forward to staying in close touch. And I agree with the sentiment that winning begets winning. And what the other side has tried to do is demoralize and discourage and disorient us and try to create this environment and belief that everything's inevitable. It's not inevitable. Democrats are winning special election after special election after special election across the country, thanks to the people. Donald Trump started on January 20th, more popular than he had ever been in his 10 years in our face. And now he's the most unpopular president at this point in the presidency in American history. Gallup just had him at 38%. The guy's public approval is in the basement, and we've got to keep it there. And the one big ugly bill is deeply unpopular all across the country because it's a disaster, and the American people know it. And we've got to make sure, obviously, to continue to stay on that case as we fight these additional battles moving forward. And our view, I've said this to the caucus, is that when they go low, we hit back hard.
When they go low, we hit back. I love it. All right, my friends, thank you guys so much. And we are here and avail ourselves to you, Leader Jeffries, your vision and your work.
Thank you, everybody.